What's up, guys? It's me, Chris. Here to give my thoughts on the whole Arturo Gatti thing. Yesterday when I got on the computer, I got on a little bit in the afternoon and saw something about it. And, honestly, I don't know. It was just strange. I don't really know how I felt about it. I had plans all that day and stuff. Had a long day planned out, family event, fights and stuff. So I don't think it really hit me as hard because I was focused elsewhere. I just wasn't thinking about it. I didn't really have time to do a video on it yesterday either. So, but, I watched UFC 100 last night. Obviously, I wasn't going to do a video after that. But, I've had a little bit of time to absorb the situation and really think about it and think about my thoughts and what I wanted to, say about Arturo Gatti. A fan said maybe I should do a video on it because I'm a big boxing fan, which I am. And I'm also, Arturo Gatti was never one of my favorite fighters per se, but he was a fighter whose fights I always wanted to watch for obvious reasons. The guy always made for exciting fights. And as a boxing fan, that's what we want, Granted, there's different type of boxing fans. Some like exciting fighters, some like technical fighters. Some root for fighters of their ethnicity, whatever the case may be. In the end, I think we all just want to see entertaining and exciting fights. And Arturo Gatti always provided that. The first fight I saw of Arturo Gatti's was the Gabriel Ellis fight. I didn't really know much about Gatti at that time. I just got back into watching boxing. Was a really exciting fight, Great knockout. Out of nowhere. And it kind of exemplifies somewhat of Gatti, where he's either got a swelling or an injury or you think he's going down, and he just pulls it out, Not to say he was going to lose that fight or he was losing, but it was just a knockout out of nowhere, just a lightning bolt, Maybe they should have called him Lightning, Arturo Gatti, but he brought the thunder in that fight. Next fight I saw of Arturo's was against Angel Manfredi. Manfredi really disliked Arturo for whatever the case. I'm not sure the reasoning, but he really had bad blood in this fight. Gatti really was never really too into that fight. I know I heard years later, or maybe even after the fight, he wasn't focused. He was out partying a lot on the Jersey Shore, I believe, which is easy to do, get caught up in. But Manfredi took it to him, cut Gatti above the eye, where he always had problems with cuts on his eyes, cuts and swelling. And the fight ended up getting stopped. Manfredi pretty much dominated him. I always want to see a rematch of that fight, but it never happened. The next fights of Arturo Gatti, great fights. The Ivan Robinson fights, particularly the first fight, excellent. If you haven't seen these two fights, you got to seek them out. They show them on ESPN Classic a lot, so not a lot, but they have shown them on there. More so the second one, but the first one's definitely the better of the two fights. Robinson was he was winning the fight throughout, controlling it, just being the better boxer. But there were times, especially late, where you knew Arturo was losing. He was going to lose the decision, but Arturo would hurt Ivan. And you would think, oh no, he's going to pull it out. Especially late in the fight. It looked like he was going to stop him. But Ivan Robinson, credit to him, was able to survive. And, they had a rematch. It was more one-sided in Ivan Robinson's favor, but still really good fights, especially if you saw him live and you had no idea what was going to happen. The drama in those fights, which exemplified Arturo Gatti's career throughout, win or lose. Next fight I saw, Joey Gamache. Very unfortunate fight for Gamache. He was outweighed. He really got just knocked out. One of the most beautiful yet brutal knockouts you'll ever see in your life. Just, it was scary for Gamache. Thankfully he was all right. And it was controversial afterwards. He formed a lawsuit about weight differences and whatnot. But as far as the knockout itself, just absolutely scintillating. If you haven't seen that, it's hard to find. But if you can find it, it's well worth it. Next up, he moved up to 147 to fight Oscar De La Hoya, more for a payday. One-sided fight, Oscar De La Hoya completely dominated Arturo, but Arturo probably made a nice paycheck there, He wasn't on De La Hoya's level at any time, but shouldn't have been fighting at welterweight then. But, if you're going to get paid to do it, why not, right? At least he tried. Next up, he had a fight against Teron Millette. Millette was a good fighter at one time, not great, but was kind of done at that point. Arturo knocked him out pretty easily. Then came the Mickey Ward trilogy. What can I say that hasn't already been said? The first fight is by far one of the top 3 fights I've ever seen watched live. The other two, in case you're wondering, being first Diego Corrales, Jose Luis Castillo fight, and the first Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales fight. I'd probably put Gatti number 2 behind Castillo Corrales and ahead of Morales Barrera 1. But just an unbelievable fight. Just so exciting back and forth. When Gatti went down on that body shot in, I believe, the 9th or 10th round, or 8th, I don't remember what round, I thought it was over. I'm like, it's done. He's not getting up. He is not getting up, because Ward was known for that body shot, and Gatti just looked in so much pain when he got hit. But credit to Gotti's heart and his true warrior spirit and nature. He got up, finished the fight, and I actually thought he should have got the decision. Ward got the decision, which was for the best in the end, because that's how come we got the trilogy. So, it was good and bad, but just one of the best fights you'll ever see, I remember in the rematch, they were so hyped for it, HBO, they said it was going to be a throwback fight. Before the fight itself started, they broadcast it in black and white to give you a feel of like the old school fights, which is something very unique. The next two fights with Ward weren't as competitive. The second fight, I believe, was more because I think that was the fight where Arturo broke his hand. Maybe his one-hand fighter. It was either that or the third fight. I know Ward busted an eardrum in one of the fights as well, but Arturo definitely won the second two fights more clearly. But either way, they're still exciting fights, and the guys became good friends afterwards. Just out of the respect they gained through those fights, and it was good to see, guys just respecting each other for the war and the fight that they had get, a moment that they shared in time that no two other people can understand except for the two men that were in that ring. Great fights. After that, Arturo had a fight against Gianluca Bronco. Not the most exciting fight. He won. Next up, Leonard Doreen, who was moving up from lightweight. I believe he won that fight on a body shot. Not the most exciting fight as well, but a good performance for Arturo. And then he beat Jesse James Lejon, another, somewhat entertaining fight. Next up, he was defending his title. I believe it might have been WC at the time. Junior welterweight title against Floyd Mayweather, who was moving up. Very one-sided fight for Mayweather. Arturo never had a chance. I don't think anybody thought he was going to even win this fight going into it, aside from Arturo and his supporters. Mayweather absolutely dominated him. Great performance by Mayweather, one of his best in my opinion. Not much to say about that. After that, Arturo moved up to 147, up to welterweight for good. First fight was against Thomas Damgaard, a fighter out of, I believe, a Danish fighter. Had a good record. He might have been undefeated or only had one loss. Pretty good fight. Arturo won that fight, late TKO. It was alright. Arturo just was never the same after the Mayweather fight, in all honesty. Next up, he faced Carlos Baldomir. Baldomir was just a bigger, stronger man. And like I said, Arturo was just never the same after the Mayweather fight. Baldomir ended up breaking him down. Arturo landed his hardest shots, and his hardest shots just had no effect on Baldomir. And once you saw that, you knew, based on the way the fight was playing, Arturo just didn't have a chance. Baldomir ended up knocking him out late. And Arturo only had one more fight after that, the fight against Alfonso Gomez, also at welterweight. Gomez was just a bigger fighter, stronger fighter. I wouldn't say he was the better fighter, but at that point, it didn't matter. Arturo just really didn't have much left. It was still an exciting fight, in all honesty, though. Arturo went out on his shield. What else would you expect? He went out on his shield swinging, got caught, got knocked out, but said afterward he was done fighting. I was kind of glad to hear. As much as I loved watching him fight, I definitely think that it was his time to retire. And I know he's had some difficulties somewhat. I've heard here and there. I don't really know what with. I don't know if it's, but I've heard he's had some difficulties since the fights, since he retired. I was very still surprised to hear about his death, From what I read today or saw today on the news, ESPN News, and FightNews.com, his wife's been arrested. Possible connection with the murder. It sounds like it, to be honest. They said, Aslino Freitas said that he was friends with him, and he said that, Arturo Gatti and his wife were talking about possibly splitting up, which is strange because they were on a honeymoon, but you never know. Maybe this was something she conspired. I think if you're from Brazil, as she was, you probably feel like you have a much better chance of getting away with the murder scheme in Brazil than you would in the United States, because she probably has more connections there, knows more people there or whatnot. But I don't know what the circumstances are yet. It sounds like it said possibly he was choked out with a purse strap and struck from behind the head with a object, some sort of blunt object. I don't know. It's just sad to hear. Arturo Gatti, a guy that's known for being a warrior and for a fighter, doesn't sound like he was even given a fighting chance for the way his life ended. It's just very sad, But I don't know. So it's just unfortunate overall. And, it's pretty amazing that two of the just toughest warriors of my time of watching boxing these last decade or so, Diego Krause and Arturo Gatti, are both deceased. Unfortunately, rest in peace. I'm sure there's a special place for them, if they are in heaven, if you believe in that or not. There's a special place for them somewhere, and who knows, maybe they're sparring right now or something, just talking about how they fight. But sad thing, but we'll always have Arturo's fights to remember by. And like I said, if you're a fight fan, I'm sure even if you weren't a fan of Gotti's, you appreciated him and enjoyed his fights, and he left a legacy, that will long be remembered throughout the annals of history. So great fighter. Maybe not a great fighter, but a good fighter, and someone that always gave you your money's worth. What else can you ask for? So rest in peace, Arturo Gatti. You will be missed, and thank you for all the great fights and all the entertaining fights. I'm out of here, guys. Until next time, bye.